All right, let's talk about the buzz that's been swirling around the Los Angeles Lakers lately, because it feels like every day we're hearing more noise about Andrew Wiggins and whether he could be the missing piece for this team. 4 months now, the Lakers front office has been clear about one priority: finding a reliable two-way wing who can defend at a high level and still give you consistent production on offense. And the name that keeps coming up the most is Wiggins. It's not hard to see why. He's athletic, he's proven on the biggest stage, and he's got that championship experience from Golden State. Remember, during that finals run, there was even real conversation about whether he deserved finals MVP. That's the type of pedigree that gets teams like the Lakers to pay attention, because at the end of the day, they're not looking for projects, they're looking for someone who can help them win right now. The tricky part is always about price and timing. Wiggins is under a big contract. We're talking north of $30 million next season, and the question is whether the Lakers are comfortable bringing that type of salary onto their books. Earlier in the summer, there were a lot of doubts about that. Would Rob Pelinka and company really commit to a player with that kind of deal? Well, the latest signs suggest that yes, they're willing to take on longer-term money if the player truly moves the needle. And that's a shift. That's the Lakers showing they understand the urgency of the moment. They've got LeBron James. They've got LUKA DONČIĆ locked up long-term. And the message is clear. The expectation is to contend for championships every single season. Now, Wiggins might be the headline target, but he's not the only name in play. When you look at the tier right below him, there are guys like Matisse Thybulle who could give his roster a defensive identity on the wing. There are also players already in the building like Jared Vanderbilt or even Jake LaRavia who could step into bigger roles if they take that next leap. That's the internal hope, that someone rises and fills that void without the need for a blockbuster move. But even if that happens, the Lakers front office might still chase a player like Wiggins just for the experience and championship know-how he brings. Because let's be honest, there's a huge difference between a young player finding his footing and a guy who's already proven himself on the biggest stage. What makes this situation interesting is the balance between patience and aggression. On one hand, you don't want the Lakers to sit on their hands all year waiting for Wiggins, only to see another team swoop in or Golden State decide not to move him at all. On the other hand, you don't want them to overpay out of desperation, throwing away depth and flexibility just to make a deal for the sake of making a deal. That's why a move for someone like Thybulle right now could make sense. Imagine flipping a contract like Gabe Vincent along with a young piece and keeping all your picks intact. You raise your defensive ceiling without sacrificing future moves. That's the kind of creative option the Lakers have to keep open. At the same time, you've got to remember that the NBA season always shakes things loose. Players who aren't even being discussed right now suddenly become available as teams pivot. Someone like Miles Bridges, with his age, size, and ability to play both forward spots, is a name worth monitoring. He might not be at Wiggins' exact level, but in the right system, he could give you a lot of what you're looking for. RJ Barrett is another interesting case. He's not quite in that elite two-way tier, but he's still young, he's still improving, and maybe in a new environment, he could unlock more of his game. That's why patience matters. If you move too early, you might miss the chance to scoop up someone who ends up being the perfect fit. But let me make one thing clear. The Lakers can't afford to be too patient. If the right opportunity is on the table now, they've got to strike. Because as much as we can preach waiting and letting the market develop, the reality is the NBA doesn't always reward teams who hesitate. Sometimes you've got to take the deal in front of you before someone else does. That's the line Rob Pelinka has to walk this season. He has already done a solid job adding pieces and keeping flexibility, but filling that wing role is the one box left unchecked. And until that's solved, the conversation is going to keep circling back to Wiggins or the next name that pops free. Another factor in all of this is how the current roster develops in training camp and the early part of the season. If Vanderbilt suddenly looks like he can hit corner threes consistently and guard multiple positions, that changes the equation. If Rui Hachimura takes another step forward and locks down the starting 3 spot, maybe you're not chasing Wiggins with the same intensity. If someone unexpected, maybe a young guy like LaRavia or even a role player acquired in a smaller trade, steps up, that could buy the Lakers time. That's why it's important to gather real data before you make a franchise-altering move. Still, you can't ignore the ceiling that Wiggins offers. He's a proven wing defender who can take on the toughest matchups in a playoff series, and he's shown he can be a reliable scorer when it matters most. The Lakers have depth at multiple positions, but what they've been missing is that dependable two-way presence on the wing. Someone who could be the connective tissue between LeBron, LUKA, and Anthony Davis. That's why Wiggins keeps popping up as the dream target, because he doesn't just fill a hole. He raises the ceiling of what this roster can achieve. The debate will come down to cost. Overpaying isn't always a bad thing if the timing and the player justify it. We've seen trades in the past where the Lakers gave up a bit more than expected, but fans were still excited because it put the team closer to a championship. That's what matters in this era. You're not just building for the future. You're maximizing the present while LeBron is still playing at a high level and LUKA is in his prime years. If you think Wiggins could be the difference between another deep playoff run and another banner, then maybe you do bite the bullet on that big salary. But if not, then the smart move might be to stay flexible and see what else develops as the season unfolds. The encouraging thing here is that the Lakers seem to understand their situation better than ever. They're not panicking. They're not just chasing names for the sake of headlines. They're identifying the type of player they need, a legitimate two-way wing who can play starter minutes or rotation minutes depending on the matchups. And they're keeping their options open. Whether it's Andrew Wiggins, Miles Bridges, RJ Barrett, Matisse Thybulle, or a name we're not even discussing yet, the front office is positioning itself to make a move when the time is right. When we think about the second layer of this conversation, it's not just about who the Lakers can bring in, it's about how the market itself shifts as the season progresses. Front offices around the league know when a team is desperate, and that always drives up the asking price. We saw it before when the Lakers were in need of center. Every single call they made, the response was steep because the leverage wasn't in their hands. Opposing executives understood the Lakers' urgency, and they tried to squeeze as much value out of them as possible. That is why timing matters so much. If the Lakers move for Andrew Wiggins right now, Golden State has no real incentive to lower the price. They can wait and see if another team comes calling with a better package. But if this drags on and the Warriors really do want to reset financially, then suddenly the Lakers can negotiate from a stronger position. It's about turning need into want. When you're operating from a position of want, you can walk away from the table, and that's when deals get more favorable. This is why patience is often preached. Let training camp play out, let the first few months of the season unfold, and then reassess. By December or January, the picture of who actually needs to make a move becomes much clearer. Teams that start the year slow will suddenly look to offload contracts. Veterans who are buried on benches will become available. Players with expiring deals become trade chips rather than long-term investments. That's the moment where you can strike without mortgaging everything. Wiggins may or may not still be on the board, but someone else just as valuable could appear. That's how these things usually happen. Still, there's a danger in waiting too long. Sometimes opportunities vanish quickly. A player like Matisse Thybulle could be moved tomorrow for very little return if Portland decides to go in a different direction. Someone like Caleb Martin could suddenly be attached to another deal and out of reach. That's the part where the Lakers have to find the balance. You don't want to be staring at the deadline with no move made, realizing you missed out on multiple options because you were too locked in on one big name. Rob Pelinka has been around long enough to understand this. His challenge is knowing when patience turns into passivity. Another element to consider is the chemistry of the current roster. Bringing in a player like Wiggins is not just about adding talent. It's about integrating that talent into a group that already has big personalities and established stars. LeBron James and LUKA DONČIĆ are not players who fade in the background. They dominate the ball, they dominate the spotlight, and they set the tone for the team. So whoever comes in has to fit into that puzzle seamlessly. That's part of why Wiggins is so appealing. He's shown he can adjust his role depending on what's needed. With Golden State, sometimes he was a second option, other times he was asked to simply defend and hit open shots. He accepted both. That adaptability is invaluable when you're playing alongside superstars. But let's not overlook what internal growth could mean for the Lakers. Rui Hachimura was one of the breakout performers late last season. If he continues on that path and becomes a reliable starter at the forward spot, then the Lakers' need shifts slightly. It's no longer about finding a locked-in starter. It becomes about finding rotation insurance. That opens the door for more affordable options. Vanderbilt is another X factor. He's already a strong defender, but if he develops even a passable outside shot, suddenly he becomes the two-way presence the Lakers are chasing without making a single trade. These are the scenarios the front office has to keep in mind because they affect how aggressive you really need to be on the trade market. One thing that's encouraging is that the Lakers have shown they're not afraid to get creative. They don't always need to chase the obvious names. Look at how they targeted players like Austin Reeves, who wasn't a first-round pick but turned into a key piece. That's the type of diamond in the rough scouting they'll need again if they want to sustain success. There are always undervalued wings scattered across the league, guys who can defend, space the floor, and do the little things without costing a fortune. Finding that player before everyone else realizes his value is the kind of move that can change a season. Now, if we zoom out and think about the bigger picture, this is not just about one season. This is about setting up a core around LUKA for the long term. LeBron's window, no matter how superhuman he continues to look, is not endless. At some point, he will decline, and the Lakers have to be ready for that transition. That's why they're willing to take on salary now. Locking in the right supporting cast ensures that even when LeBron eventually steps back, LUKA still has the infrastructure to compete for championships. Andrew Wiggins fits that vision because of his age and contract, but he's not the only path forward. You could argue that spreading that money across 2 or 3 solid role players could actually raise the ceiling higher. For instance, adding someone like Thibault along with a reliable big man to support Anthony Davis could solve multiple problems at once. That's the part of this discussion that sometimes gets overlooked. Everyone gets caught up in the star chase. But championships are usually won by depth, by role players stepping up, by having that one guy off the bench who swings a playoff game. If the Lakers can find multiple contributors rather than tying themselves to one expensive option, that could be the smarter play. It's about risk management. If you trade for Wiggins and he gets injured or struggles, you've lost assets and cap space. If you spread those assets into 2 or 3 players, you're hedging your bets. One of them is bound to hit. And yet, the allure of a player like Wiggins is hard to deny. Because in the playoffs, matchups are everything. Having a wing who can guard the likes of Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, or Jason Tatum is invaluable. You can't expect LeBron to shoulder that defensive burden anymore, and you don't want to waste Anthony Davis chasing wings around the perimeter. Wiggins fills that gap perfectly. That's why the rumors won't die down. Even if the Lakers are considering other paths, Wiggins is always going to be the name that feels like the most direct solution. At the end of the day, it comes down to whether the Lakers believe he is the missing piece that justifies the cost. If they do, they'll find a way to make it happen. If they don't, then fans should prepare for the possibility that the solution comes in a different form. Maybe a less flashy move. Maybe someone no one is even thinking about right now. What matters is that the Lakers keep their eyes open and stay ready to act when the moment is right. Because opportunities in this league don't last forever, and championship windows can close faster than you expect. Before we continue, we ask that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Lakers updates. Moving on, breaking news has sent shockwaves through the basketball world. Luka Doncic has reportedly made a monumental decision. He is leaving the Los Angeles Lakers. Sources close to the superstar, who has been one of the NBA's brightest talents, hint that this move could reshape the league's landscape in ways fans can only begin to imagine. While official confirmation is still pending from the Lakers front office, insiders suggest that Doncic's decision is final, sending a ripple of speculation through teams and analysts alike. The whispers began earlier this week, with anonymous sources hinting at tension behind the scenes in Los Angeles. Some speculate that LUKA, despite his undeniable impact on the court, may have grown frustrated with the team's direction and the Lakers' struggles to build a championship-caliber roster around him. Others believe this move could be motivated by personal ambition, as Doncic looks to align himself with a team that can instantly contend for titles. The NBA universe is now buzzing with potential destinations, from East Coast powerhouses looking for generational talent to West Coast rivals hoping to capitalize on this rare opportunity. Social media has exploded, with fans and analysts dissecting every possible scenario. Could he reunite with former teammates in Dallas? Or is a blockbuster trade on the horizon with a team hungry for a transformative star? The Lakers management has remained tight-lipped, fueling further speculation. Sports commentators are debating whether this departure signals a new era of super teams or a shakeup that could redefine power dynamics across the league. While the exact details are murky, one thing is certain. Luka Doncic's exit from the Lakers, if confirmed, will be one of the most stunning moves in recent NBA history. Every fan, player, and executive is now waiting with bated breath to see where the superstar will land and what this decision will mean for the future of the sport. The rumor mill is ablaze, and basketball fans everywhere are holding their breath. Stay informed exclusively about Los Angeles Lakers news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep receiving daily updates. Also, share your opinion on the news in comments, as your contribution is crucial for the Lakers. Stay tuned for the next video.